Before the gods ruled from bright marble halls. Before thunder had a name. Before law, order, and fate were divided into neat domains. The universe belonged to something older. Older than Olympus. Older than Zeus. Older even than time as mortals understand it. This is the age of the Titans. Not monsters. Not villains. But the first rulers of existence itself. Long before hymns praised the Olympians. Long before poets softened the story. The cosmos was shaped by beings of raw force and elemental will. This is not a story of good versus evil. It is a story of succession. Of fear. Of prophecy. Of parents who devoured their children to outrun destiny. And of a war so violent that the universe itself had to be remade afterward. The Titanomachy was not merely a battle. It was the breaking point between ages. The moment the old world collapsed so a new one could rise. To understand the gods, their cruelty, their paranoia, their obsession with control, one must begin here, with the Titans, and with the silence that existed before them. In the beginning there were no gods, no Titans, no mortals, no sky, no earth. There was chaos. Not chaos as disorder, but chaos as emptiness. A vast yawning absence where nothing yet had formed. From chaos emerged the first principles of existence. Not born but unfolding. Gaia came forth. The earth, solid, enduring, fertile. Then Tartarus, the abyss beneath all things. A depth so profound it would later terrify even the gods. And Eros, not romance but attraction. The force that allows creation to occur at all. From these forces, the universe began to take shape. Gaia, alone but powerful, gave birth without a partner. She brought forth Uranus. The sky. Uranus stretched above her, vast and endless, covering Gaia completely, enclosing her in an eternal embrace. Together, earth and sky ruled the newborn cosmos. And together they produced children. Gaia and Uranus created many offspring. But not all were welcomed. First came the Hecaton chairs, hundred-handed giants of overwhelming strength. Then the Cyclopes, one-eyed beings of immense power and craft. Uranus looked upon them and felt fear. Not disgust. Not hatred. Fear. These children were too strong. Too uncontrollable. Too unpredictable. So Uranus did what insecure rulers have always done. He imprisoned them. He forced them deep into Gaia's body, burying them in the earth's, locking them away in darkness and pain. Gaia suffered, her own children trapped within her, their weight pressing, their anguish echoing endlessly. But Uranus did not stop. More children were born. 12 Titans, 6 sons, 6 daughters. Zeus, Cous, Creus, Hyperion, Iapetus, and Kronos. The daughters, Thea, Rhea, Mnemosyne, Phoebe, Tethys, and Themis. These were not monsters. They were gods in scale, but closer to the elements than to personalities. They embodied the structure of reality itself. Oceanus was the world encircling. River, Hyperion the light of the sun. Mnemosyne memory. Themis divine law. And Kronos. Kronos was time. Not clocks or calendars, but the consuming passage that devours all things. Uranus feared his children. All of them. He despised their power. And he hated Gaia for creating them. Every night Uranus returned to Gaia, pressing himself upon her, ensuring no child could escape into the light. The Titans grew within her, aware, intelligent, trapped before they had even lived. This was the first tyranny, and it would not be the last. Gaia endured for a long time. Earth always does. But even the earth has limits. The pain of her imprisoned children, the cruelty of Uranus, the endless domination without consent, became unbearable. So Gaia planned rebellion. She crafted a weapon, not of bronze or iron, but of pure adamant. A sickle, sharp enough to sever sky from earth. Gaia approached her Titan sons. She asked them who would stand against their father. Most refused. Uranus was vast, eternal, unchallengeable. But one stepped forward. Kronos, the youngest Titan. The quiet one. The patient one. Kronos agreed. Not out of mercy for his siblings, but out of ambition. He hid himself, waited, and when Uranus descended once more to dominate Gaia, Kronos struck. The sickle flashed. The sky screamed. Uranus was castrated. His power violently severed. His reign ended in blood and terror. From the drops of his blood, new beings were born. The Furies, the Giants, the seeds of future wars. And Uranus defeated cursed his son. He spoke a prophecy that Kronos too would be overthrown by his own child. With that, the first ruler fell, and the age of the Titans truly began. Kronos freed his siblings. The Titans emerged into the light, and Kronos became king. This era would later be remembered as a golden age. A time before hunger, before disease, before death haunted mortals. But this memory is selective. The Titan Age was peaceful, but it was also stagnant. Kronos ruled from fear, not wisdom. He had seen his father fall. He had heard the prophecy, and it haunted him. Time, after all, knows that nothing lasts. Kronos married Rhea, his sister, and together they began to produce children. But Kronos did not celebrate. He remembered Uranus' last words. So each time Rhea gave birth, Kronos swallowed the child whole. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, each one consumed. Alive, trapped within their father. Rhea screamed. Gaia wept. History repeated itself. The oppressed became the oppressor. The victim became the tyrant. And the cycle tightened. When Rhea became pregnant again, she could not endure another loss. She turned to Gaia. Together they devised a plan. When the child was born, Rhea fled to Crete. There in a hidden cave, she gave birth to Zeus. Instead of handing the child to Kronos, she wrapped a stone in swaddling clothes. Kronos swallowed it without question. Time-consumed stone, thinking it had devoured fate. Zeus was hidden, raised in secrecy, fed by the goat Amalthea, protected by warriors who clashed their shields. To drown out his cries, he grew strong, not just in body, but in resolve. This child would not repeat the cycle. This child would break it. But to do so, he would have to challenge beings older than the sky itself. And that challenge would become the greatest war the universe had ever known. For now the Titans ruled. They believed themselves secure. Kronos sat on his throne. Time itself bent to his will, unaware that fate was already moving against him. Deep within him, his swallowed children waited. And somewhere in secret, a god was growing, who would bring the old world to an end. The Titanomachy had not yet begun, but the universe was already holding its breath. The Titans did not feel the shift at first. Power rarely notices change until it is already too late. Kronos ruled from the center of the cosmos, convinced that time itself obeyed him, convinced that the prophecy had been devoured along with his children. But fate does not live in the stomach of kings. It waits. It stretches. It returns. Far from the Titan courts. Far from the memory of swallowed gods. Zeus grew. Not openly. Not gloriously. Quietly. Zeus' childhood was not marked by comfort. It was marked by concealment. In the caves of Crete, among shadows and stone, he learned early what it meant to survive unseen. The nymphs who raised him did not tell him stories of peace. They told him stories of what happens when power fears replacement. He learned of Uranus, of Gaia's pain, of Kronos' betrayal, and most importantly, he learned of his siblings. 5 gods alive conscious, trapped inside their father. This knowledge shaped Zeus, not into a hero, but into a strategist. He did not burn with reckless rebellion. He waited. Zeus' first ally was not a warrior. It was Medes, a titaness of wisdom, cunning, foresight. She understood cycles. She understood that force alone does not end tyranny. With Medes' guidance, Zeus approached Kronos not as a challenger, but as a servant. He entered the Titan court quietly, a cupbearer, a minor presence. Kronos did not recognize his own son. Time often fails to see what is new. Medes prepared a potion, not poison, something far more dangerous. Memory. Zeus gave it to Kronos, and the king of the Titans began to convulse. What had been swallowed returned. First the stone, then Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. The swallowed gods emerged, fully grown, unchanged by time. The prophecy had come full circle. Kronos was exposed, and the war became inevitable. The Titans did not unify immediately. That is a detail often forgotten. Not all Titans supported Kronos. Some were neutral. Some were weary. Some understood what change meant. Oceanus refused to fight. So did many of his daughters. But others stood firm. Hyperion, Coeus, Greus, Iapetus. They had ruled for ages. They would not surrender the cosmos to children. Zeus gathered his siblings. They were not yet Olympians. They were refugees of a stolen childhood. Together they fled. And they prepared. Zeus knew something the Titans had forgotten. Deep beneath the world, deeper even than Gaia's roots, lay Tartarus. There, imprisoned by Uranus long ago, were beings even the Titans feared. The Hecatonchires, the Cyclopes, monsters according to Titan law, weapons according to Zeus. He descended into Tartarus, not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. The chains were broken. The 100-handed giants rose, their strength shaking the abyss itself. The Cyclopes emerged, their single eyes blazing with creation fire. They did not forget who had imprisoned them. They remembered, and gratitude, when paired with rage, is a powerful force. The Cyclopes were craftsmen, not of comfort, but of destruction. They forged gifts. For Zeus, they shaped thunderbolts, not symbols, but instruments of absolute authority. For Poseidon, a trident, capable of splitting land and sea. For Hades, a helm of invisibility, granting unseen passage between worlds. These were not decorations. They were statements. The Titans had ruled through size and age. The new gods would rule through control of fundamental forces. The first clash shattered the illusion of peace. Mountains were torn from the earth and hurled like weapons. Oceans boiled. Skies burned. The Titans fought as forces of nature. The younger gods fought as strategists. Neither side yielded. For 10 years, the war consumed the cosmos. There were no spectators. Every river, every star, every stretch of land felt the impact. Gaia herself cried out, torn between children fighting children. The universe bent, not knowing which age would survive. Despite their weapons, despite their allies, Zeus and the Olympians could not win outright. The Titans were too old, too vast, too deeply woven into existence. Likewise, the Titans could not destroy the younger gods. The war reached equilibrium, a deadlock of devastation. And that was when Zeus made a choice. Not of force, of finality. Zeus returned to Tartarus. He spoke again to the Hecatonchires. not as a commander, as a king in waiting. He promised them something the Titans never had. Freedom, not conditional, not borrowed, permanent. The giants accepted, and the balance tipped. When the Hecatoncheires entered the war, the earth itself recoiled. Each of their 100 hands hurled boulders. With the force of falling stars, the Titans were overwhelmed, not defeated through strength alone, but through exhaustion. Time itself began to falter. Kronos fell, bound, stripped of dominion. The Titan order collapsed. One by one, the old rulers were chained. Zeus did not destroy the Titans. That choice mattered. Instead, he imprisoned them, deep in Tartarus, behind bronze gates, guarded by the Hecatoncheires. It was not mercy. It was containment. A new ruler does not erase the past. He buries it. The war was over, but the damage remained. The cosmos was scarred, irreversibly changed. The Titans had fallen, but something else had fallen with them. The illusion of permanence. The universe had learned that even gods can be replaced. And Zeus, standing amid the ruins of an age, understood something crucial. Power does not come from strength alone. It comes from remembering what was destroyed, to build what comes next. The war ended, but the universe did not return to peace. It never does. What remained after the Titanomachy was not victory, but silence. A silence filled with broken mountains, shattered seas, and skies still echoing with thunder. The old rulers were gone. The new rulers stood uncertain in their place, and the cosmos waited to see what kind of order would replace the one that had fallen. Zeus did not celebrate. Those who survive the fall of an age rarely do. Victory came with responsibility, and responsibility came with memory. The Titans were bound in Tartarus, but their influence remained. The earth still trembled from Kronos' fall. The seas had not settled. The stars themselves seemed displaced. Zeus understood something his father never had. Ruling was not about domination. It was about structure. Without order, the victory meant nothing. The first decision was not made alone. Zeus gathered his brothers. Hades, Poseidon, the three sons of Kronos stood together, not as enemies, but as survivors. They cast lots, not to tempt fate, but to acknowledge it. The sky fell to Zeus, the seas to Poseidon, the underworld to Hades. The earth itself remained shared ground, belonging to none. And all. This division was not equal. It was functional. Each realm required a ruler who understood its nature. Zeus became the axis of order, the voice of law, the arbiter of divine balance. Poseidon ruled chaos restrained by boundaries. Hades governed what could not be escaped. Together they formed the skeleton of the new cosmos. Not all Titans were imprisoned. Zeus understood nuance. Oceanus remained free, his waters still encircling the world. Mnemosyne was honored, for memory is essential to history. Themis, divine law itself, stood beside Zeus, guiding his judgments. The Titan age was not erased. It was absorbed. The Olympians did not replace the Titans. They built upon them. Olympus was not a palace at first. It was a refuge, a high place untouched by the scars of war. From there, Zeus assembled the new order, not as a tyrant, but as a regulator. Each god was given domain, not as reward, but as necessity. Hera became guardian of marriage and sovereignty. Demeter, keeper of the harvest. Hestia, hearth and home. Athena, wisdom and strategy. Apollo, order and prophecy. Artemis, the wild untouched. The gods were not symbols. They were systems. Each represented a force that needed oversight. Zeus ruled with confidence, but beneath it lay fear. He remembered Uranus. He remembered Kronos. He remembered the prophecy. Power invites repetition, and repetition terrifies rulers. Zeus swore to break the cycle, but breaking cycles requires restraint, and restraint does not come easily to gods. The giants rose, born of Gaia's anger. They challenged the new order. The Titanomachy was not rebellion. It was retaliation. The Olympians stood united. For the first time, they fought as a coordinated force. Athena led with strategy. Apollo struck with precision. Zeus enforced with thunder. The giants fell. The message was clear. The age of uncontrolled power had ended. Before the war, mortals were distant echoes. After the war, they became central. Zeus permitted humanity to flourish, not out of kindness, but necessity. Mortals provided contrast. They aged. They died. They reminded the gods what immortality meant and what it cost. The war was never about good versus evil. It was about adaptability. The Titans represented permanence. The Olympians represented change. And change always wins. Not because it is better, but because it moves. The Titanomachy shaped everything. The gods' paranoia, their laws, their punishments, even Zeus' wrath, was forged in that conflict. He learned that rebellion begins in silence. And silence must be watched. Olympus stood. The cosmos stabilized. But beneath the structure lay tension. Power balanced on memory. And memory is fragile. The Titans slept beneath the world. But their story lingered. Waiting. Zeus had won. But history does not end with victory. It only pauses. The Titanomachy was over. But the lesson remained. Every ruler becomes what they overthrow, unless they remember why the war was fought. The war was over, but its shadow did not retreat. It stretched across generations, across mountains and seas, into the quiet corners of divine thought, where even gods hesitate to look. The Titanomachy did not end conflict. It redefined it. From that moment forward, every decision made by the Olympians was shaped by what they had overthrown. Tartarus became more than a place. It became a warning. The Titans were bound there, not merely restrained, but erased from daily memory. No hymns were sung for them. No temples raised. They existed as cautionary myths, whispered reminders of what happens when power refuses to adapt. Zeus did not destroy them, because destruction invites rebirth. Instead, he buried them in time, a fate worse than death for immortals. Kronos, once king of everything, sat in chains, time itself restrained. Some traditions claim Zeus later freed him, granting him rule over the Isles of the Blessed. Others insist Kronos remains bound. The contradiction matters. It reflects uncertainty. Even the victors could not agree. What should be done with the past? Because the past, when released, has a way of returning stronger. Gaia did not celebrate Olympian victory. She had lost children. Again, her grief was not selective. Titan or Olympian, they were all born of her. She tolerated Zeus' rule, but never embraced it. From her anger rose monsters. Giants, serpents, forces meant to test the new order. Not to overthrow it, but to remind it that nature does not belong to kings. The Olympians were victorious, but not invincible. The Titanomachy taught them a truth they could never forget. Even immortals can fall. This knowledge shaped their behavior. Zeus became watchful. Hera became protective. Athena became strategic. The gods began to interfere. They punished defiance early, harshly, not out of cruelty, out of memory. Prometheus did not fight for Kronos. He did not fight for Zeus. He fought for foresight, a titan who sided with the Olympians. He saw which way history would turn. Yet even loyalty did not protect him. Prometheus gave fire to mortals, knowledge, power, and Zeus punished him, bound him to a rock, an eagle devouring his liver daily. This was not vengeance. It was fear. If mortals became too powerful, they might repeat the cycle. Prometheus' suffering became a lesson, not just for humans, for gods. The Titanomachy was no longer a war. It became doctrine. Olympus taught its story carefully. The Titans were framed as tyrants, the Olympians as liberators. History was simplified, because complexity breeds doubt, and doubt breeds rebellion. Before the war, gods were forces. After the war, they became rulers. They judged. They punished. They interfered. The Olympians did not merely govern the cosmos. They governed behavior. And behavior, once controlled, reshapes belief. Among humans, the Titans never fully vanished. Their names remained in mountains, in rivers, in stars. Stories passed quietly, unpolished by Olympus. Whispers of a time before law hardened, before fate was assigned. These stories unsettled the gods, because they suggested another way was once possible. Zeus carried the greatest burden. To rule was to prevent repetition. But prevention required dominance. And dominance risks becoming tyranny. Every act of wrath, every thunderbolt hurled, carried the echo of Uranus. Zeus knew this. And yet, he continued. Because order demands enforcement. The Titanomachy did not conclude with chains. It continued in subtler forms. In divine politics, in mortal suffering, in the constant struggle between freedom and control. The Titans lost the war, but their question survived. Should the universe be ruled by permanence or by change? Olympus answered, but the answer was never final. The Titans were not evil. They were outdated, and history does not forgive those who cannot evolve. The Olympians were not righteous. They were timely, and time rewards those who arrive at the moment of transition. Every conflict that followed was born here. The Gigantomachy, the Trojan War, the fall of heroes, all echoes of the First War, all variations on the same theme. Power fears replacement, and replacement is inevitable. Not a battle of gods, but a cosmic correction, a recalibration of authority, a reminder that even the divine must change or be buried. The Titans remain beneath the world, not sleeping, waiting, because history is patient, and cycles never truly break. Time passed. Mountains settled into their scars. Oceans calmed into familiar rhythms. The sky learned to thunder only when commanded. The universe stabilized. And with stability came something more dangerous than chaos. Narrative. Because once the violence faded, once the chains were locked and the gates sealed, the victors began to explain what had happened. Not to remember it, but to control how it would be remembered. The Olympians did not simply rule the world. They explained it. They told stories of the Titans as crude, violent, and unfit to govern. They framed themselves as restorers of balance and justice. They emphasized liberation, not succession. This was not deception. It was simplification. Because history told in full is unstable. And unstable stories create unstable worlds. So the Titanomachy became myth. And myth became instruction. The Titans represented something dangerous. They were not evil. They were unchanging. They ruled by age, not adaptation. By inheritance, not innovation. In a universe that had learned motion, they stood still. And stillness in myth is framed as tyranny. So the Titans were remembered as oppressors, even though their rule had once been peaceful. Peace without growth, however, is simply delayed collapse. The Olympians understood this, and they made sure history did too. Zeus and his siblings were not saviors. They were catalysts. They forced the universe forward. Through destruction. This is the part myths rarely linger on. Order is not gentle at birth. It arrives through upheaval. The Olympians did not inherit a stable cosmos. They carved one out of ruin. And to justify that carving, the past had to be painted dark. Power does not fall because it is wicked. It falls because it cannot adapt. Uranus fell because he feared his children. Kronos fell because he tried to stop time. The Titans fell because they believed age itself was authority. The Olympians rose because they moved. They learned. They changed. They absorbed what came before them. This is not morality. It is mechanics. Zeus swore he would not repeat the cycle. But cycles do not ask permission. They tighten around those who rule long enough. His paranoia, his punishments, his relentless enforcement of order, all echoes of what he overthrew. The Titanomachy did not end tyranny. It refined it. Despite the stories, the Olympians depended on the Titans. Oceanus still circled the world. Mnemosyne still held memory. Themis still guided law. Even Zeus ruled with Titan structures beneath him. The old world was not destroyed. It was buried and reused. Every palace stands on older ruins, because they remind the universe that power is temporary, that rulers are not eternal, that every age believes it is the final one, until it is. The Titans exist in myth, to warn gods and mortals alike. Nothing lasts, not even those who think they rule time. This war was not just divine history. It was human history projected onto the cosmos. Empires rise. Empires harden. Empires fall. The names change. The pattern does not. The Titans were the old empire. The Olympians were the new. And someday, even Olympus would tremble. Because it speaks quietly. It does not shout heroism. It whispers inevitability. It teaches that rebellion is not always righteous. That victory is not always pure. That stability often hides violence beneath it. And that every ruler inherits both the throne and the ghosts beneath it. The Titans did not lose because they were wrong. They lost because time moved past them. The Olympians did not win because they were good. They won because they arrived at the moment the universe needed change. That is the truth buried beneath the myths. The Titans sleep in Tartarus. The gods rule from Olympus. Mortals live between. And history continues. Not in straight lines, but in spirals. Returning themes. Familiar fears. Because the war before the gods never truly ended. It simply changed names. The Titanomachy is over. The universe is ordered. But beneath every law, every throne, every divine decree, lies the memory of what came before. A reminder that power is borrowed, that order is temporary, and that even the gods once fought a war to inherit the world they rule. If this story settles the mind, let it fade slowly. The Titans will still be there when sleep arrives, waiting.